Recovery from an eating disorder is 100% possible, even during a pandemic. My name is Jessica Scalzo with Compassionate Peer Counseling, a peer counseling service for anybody working to recover from an eating disorder or related issues such as anxiety, depression, control, perfectionism, and so on. I also work with athletes because a lot of times athletics and eating disorders intersect, as it did for me. And as an athlete, especially highly competitive athletes, there's a lot of pressures to compete and be the best and to strive for excellence. Today I want to share my recovery story, just a real brief part of it in relationship to this COVID-19 and quarantine, because I have been reflecting lately on how if I had to do this 15 years ago, I would have really struggled with my eating disorder. And I reflect on that because I remember 15 years ago when I would get sick and maybe have to rest for a couple days. It just threw my whole life off, and I really struggled to cope with that. Even if I wasn't quarantined, I could still go to school or I could go to the store and get what I needed. Just not being able to do my exact routine the way I was used to would really cause me to struggle and abandon myself. And so for me, what that looked like was I really was very routine about exercise and about getting a certain amount of exercise. And it really contributed to my identity and my perception of myself. And if I wasn't able to do that, I would feel that I really hadn't accomplished anything in the day. I would definitely feel emotionally uncomfortable, even though at that time I did not know how to feel those feelings, so I wasn't aware of them. And I very much was stuffing them down with restricting food and then binging on food and then obsessing about how terrible I was for having no control and binging on food. And when I was doing all those behaviors, no emotions were really able to come through that I could feel. What I would feel though, if I wasn't able to do my normal things in the way I was used to doing them, very regimented, was that I would feel like a failure. I would feel like if I didn't exercise that I'd really gotten a pass and I'd gotten off easy and I didn't accomplish anything. And that would also lead to a belief that if I'm not exercising, I really don't need to eat, or I need to eat a lot less. And anytime we do that, i.e. a diet, or if we are food insecure, that will lead to binging later on down the line. That's just the body trying to maintain itself in homeostasis. And so if when I was sick, when I would restrict myself because of all these self-limiting and self-abandoning beliefs, it would later lead to more and more binging. And you can see how the cycle would just keep going and keep going, because I would feel terrible for binging, and that would lead to more self-blame and self-abandonment, which would lead to more restriction, which would lead to more binging. So it's a vicious cycle, and anybody who's been caught in it or is caught in it knows the experience. I share that to say that I have been in it. I have been in the thick of it. It took me 20 years to recover completely. And while not all of that 20 was so entrenched, like the example I just gave, a lot of it was. And I am giving this example to compare to now, where I am in quarantine. This is maybe going on the 6th week of it. I only go out once a week to go to the store, and I can't even go for a walk because of injuries. I've been reflecting on my experience of having an eating disorder and now not. And even though now I can't do what I'm used to, and I have gone to stores and there has been a lot of food missing, there has been no urge to engage in those restrictive behaviors which would lead to binging behaviors. Now that doesn't mean that from time to time I don't eat something when I'm not hungry. I totally do that. And it's completely normal and natural to do that. But there has been no urge or no self-limiting beliefs that are pushing me to restrict what I'm eating or watch what I'm eating or make sure I'm exercising to make up for XYZ or not really allowing myself to feel my feelings and abandoning myself by just eating lots of food in the way of a binge where I'm not even really present while I'm doing it, so that I don't have to feel my discomfort of whatever is going on in the moment. I want to share my story because I'm seeing some quotes from people online speaking about relapsing right now, people who thought they were recovered and now they have relapsed. Or there's been a couple quotes saying, well, an eating disorder never really leaves us. We're always going to have to live with it. And while I do absolutely validate that and know that even relapse is part of the recovery process, it definitely happened to me, so that's totally normal. But I want to share my story to say that, yes, and here is something else that can happen. Yes, maybe you are stuck with an eating disorder for your whole life. Maybe you are relapsing right now. And here's another story too, one of recovery. And as a peer counselor, this is a tool that I use a lot, is to share pieces of my story so that people can relate to me and know that, oh yeah, she has kind of experienced what I'm going through and she recovered. That kind of builds a feeling of hope. And that's what I want to do right now, is share an empowering story so that we don't have to feel that our only option is to be stuck with it our whole lives, or when something hard happens that we relapse. It doesn't have to be that way. For me, something hard can happen. And what's beautiful is that now taking care of myself, staying with myself, staying in my body, and being kind to myself actually feels better than restricting what I'm eating and avoiding what I'm feeling. And so it's not a matter of willpower that keeps me in recovery. It's just because I've retrained my brain, I've retrained habits to where I just gravitate towards taking care of myself and sitting with my feelings, because it actually feels better and it actually serves me. And it's not a matter of having to will myself to do it. With doing recovery work, it becomes the habit. It becomes what we do. I realize also, I think it's important to mention that recovery is a privilege. It's a privilege that I was able to get resources that I needed to recover. I have a lot of privileges that I could list, and I list them in my blog to say that not everyone has this access to recovery. And my purpose, part of my intention, is to use my privilege and the privilege of being recovered to reach out and support others, and to also share an empowering story and to give information to help others to their own recovery. I think that's all I want to say about that right now. If you want to talk about it, please leave some comments if you like in the comment section, or we have a Facebook group at Compassionate Peer Counseling if you want to leave a comment there. Also, I'm going to link the blog down below if you want to read the actual blog that I wrote about my experience. And if you'd really like to do some peer counseling work or talk more in depth about this with me, please reach out to Compassionate Peer Counseling at www.compassionatepeercounseling.com. In the meantime, please, whatever it takes, whatever it looks like for you, please take care during this time. Thank you for your attention.